on and ensure that they become part of the tourism story as we go on. On top there, that is Lake Victoria. And the Lake Victoria activities as far as tourism is concerned is very limited. There's a lot of potential within the lake, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Next, we do not, sorry, just back to the picture. Next is the cultural tourism. Everybody in Kenya seems to know about the Maasais, but Kenya has got more than Maasais only. So we have an opportunity to look at tourism in a cultural perspective wider than Maasais. The migration in Masai Mara is considered one of the 8th wonders of the world. But again, we have made it too cheap, and at the moment it has become only a 3-month wonder. So whereas Masai Mara should be busy the whole year, currently it is only busy for about 3 months in a year. Then we have the Kakamega Forest. Very few people talk about the Kakamega Forest. This is the forest in Kenya with lots of flora and fauna, with the most species of butterflies, with the most species of snakes. Yet there's only one lodge, which is in the Kakamega Forest. So as investors in tourism, we have not done very well in being able to develop areas like Kakamega Forest. The camels and the beach safari, that is what I started by talking about. We seem to do very well in this particular area, and 70% of our tourism in Kenya comes from this particular area. The next picture is tea plantations. We don't seem to do very well in agro-tourism, where we're talking about how we can relate the coffee plantations and tea plantations to tourism. There are people who actually would like to see how we go through the processes of agriculture as part of tourism. So this is an area the researchers, you need to lead us in developing activities and things which can make us also be able to grow this area. Now, those of you who are a little bit older will know that there was a hotel called the Kericho Tea Hotel. At that time, a very good hotel. No longer anything to talk about. And as far as I'm concerned, the Kericho area as a tourism circle is totally dead. And then, of course, we remember the fact that we are very good in athletics. And Kenya is a very good place for us to do sports tourism. Now, if you went to Iten, it's an area we have a lot of potentials in developing so that people can actually come and train here, or they can come and utilize the facilities which are in Iten as a tourism venture. And then we also don't do enough on mountaineering. Now, just looking at these pictures, the mountains remind you of the Alps. The lakes remind you of the Great Lakes. And the agriculture reminds you of the major agricultural activities that we have everywhere. So even as we speak about TVET and the blue economy, we should widen our scope further than just looking at the beach, and also the safaris, to make it a bit richer than it is. Next slide, please. Now, tourism in Kenya employs about 12% of the total labor. It contributes about 10% of the GDP. So it's actually a very important entity, but it can become more important. Now, the conversations we were having yesterday, and I think Betty was talking to us about it, today we are looking for stewards. And to the best of my knowledge, there's no institution which trains stewards. So those are the areas that we need to look at. Today we are looking for animators. We have just finished doing a curriculum for animators for this institution. So there are many other areas that we need to work on. Out of every 10 people who work in the tourism trade, only 2 are formally trained. So the issue of training is actually a big opportunity which is still not properly taken care of. Tourism is able to energize communities, it's able to create jobs, it's able to develop infrastructure, it's able to improve on our cultural exchanges, and it helps in regional integration. Next, please. Yeah, this is what I've just spoken about. And from where I stand, tourism is a sleeping giant. And just to give you some statistics, from Shimoni all the way to Lamu, there are a total of 50,000 beds. Every bed normally employs at least one person directly. Indirectly, every bed employs at least another 5 people. So just within the Mombasa ecosystem, we are talking of almost 1 million people who are supposed to be in the tourism industry. Now, at the moment, because of the COVID issues, many of them are jobless because things really went down. And that's why we believe that coming of the cruise tourism is also going to help us a lot, because it's yet another page that we can be able to use to pick ourselves up and move forward. Next, please. Just go to the next again. Now, these are statistics which I find very interesting. Kenya is considered very strong in matters of tourism. But let me talk about that a little bit later. The country which receives the most tourists in the world is actually France. And in the year 2018, they had 89.4 million tourists. The stats for 2019, we don't have them as of now. It is followed by Spain, which had 82.8 million people. Now, if you go on that list, there is no single African nation which is appearing in the top 10 world famous tourism arrivals. So the tourists seem to go to Europe and they seem to go to America. And I keep asking myself why. Because there's absolutely no comparison of what you can find in Africa compared to what you can find in Europe, in America. The riches that we have in this continent should be able to bring us way more tourists than we're getting at the moment. Next, please. But even when you go to Africa, remember, France has 89 million tourists in a year. The country which receives the most tourists in Africa is Egypt. The country which receives the most tourists in Africa is Egypt, with only 13 million tourists in a year. It is followed by Morocco, South Africa, Tunisia. Kenya is actually number 9. And in the year 2018, we only made 1.9 million tourists. And for as long as I have been in the tourism industry, Kenya has been talking about making 2 million tourists in a year. And we have never managed. So with all those wonderful facilities we spoke about a little bit earlier, the question is, why are we only making 1.9 tourists? It's a question which should worry us and it should concern us. Now, if you take a place like South Africa, quite a bit of the 10.2 million tourists which South Africa gets in a year are regional. So people who come from Botswana, who come from Namibia, who come from Zimbabwe, who come from Lesotho within the ecosystem. But for us, 1.9. And remember, if you take the East African community only, we have a population of almost 200 million. Where are they going? Why are they not coming to Kenya? And remember the conversation we had earlier when we were being presented to by Senior Shiundu. We were told that Ethiopia is landlocked, yet they have 11 ships which are active in the marketplace. Kenya, we have a sea, yet we don't have a single ship. So this explains to you the various gaps that we have, which we need to look at and be able to work on as researchers, as investors, as educationists, and so on and so forth. Next, please. This is one fact which bothers me a lot. There's a mall in Dubai which receives 84 million visitors in a year. I keep asking myself, how can a mall be receiving more tourists even than the country which receives the most tourists in the world? And how can a mall be receiving more tourists than Kenya? Again, I have put this slide here deliberately to explain that we are not yet there. We should not become arrogant or believe that we are doing so well. We are not. Amol is making 84 million tourists. Kenya is making 1.9. Next slide. So if you look at the international arrivals for Kenya, by 2020, we had only, I think, 500,000. This was partially because of the COVID. But again, nothing big to celebrate about. Next. And this is how much we make from tourism. Again, in the year 2020, we only made 150 billion shillings on tourism. We can be able to do way better than that. Next, please. Now, these are statistics which are very important for us. Today, Nigeria is the most populated country in Africa, with a population of more than 208 million. If we were only able to get 1% of Nigerians to come to Kenya as tourists, they will give us more than what we get in a year. Because 1% of 200 million is 2 million. If we can become a bit more ambitious and make it 10%, Nigeria only can be able to give us 20 million tourists. Now the question I keep asking myself, why is it easier for Nigerians to go to Europe than to come to Africa, African countries? Why is it easier for them to go to the UK, for them to go to other places, as opposed to coming here? Ethiopia has got 114 million tourists. Ethiopia is a member of the East African Community. Egypt, 102. Democratic Republic of Congo, which joined us in the East African Community the other day, has got 90 million. South Africa has 59. Tanzania, 59. And Kenya has 53 million shillings. Yes, 53 million tourists who come to. So if you just take the East African Community ecosystem, if you take Ethiopia, you take Democratic Republic of Congo, you take Tanzania, you take Kenya, you take Uganda, you take South Sudan, maybe Sudan, Rwanda, and Burundi, we actually have a fairly big ecosystem. And the challenge that we have as people in this industry is to see how we can be able to make sure that these people can also be able to come here. By the way, for records, all the West Africans who come to Kenya to visit this country, when they see how clean our beaches are, when they see the kind of malls that we have, when they see the kind of facilities that we have, they are totally surprised at how good our facilities are. So, are we doing the proper marketing? Is this data shared properly the way it should? Are we doing the right things we're supposed to be doing to ensure that we can be able to have as many people coming to Africa as possible? I think we are not. The next one, please. This is the migration in Kenya, which I referred to a little bit earlier as the eighth wonder of the world. The migration started in the year 1948, and since then, every year, the migration happens right from just about July going on until November. In a very good year, we have a total of more than 2 million animals crossing between Serengeti and Masai Mara. Again, to me, this is a bigger reason for people to come to Kenya and Tanzania than to go to Spain and to France. Next, please. That's a South African slide. Let's go to the next one. This is Mosiotunya. Mosiotunya means the smoke that thunders. Mosiotunya is on the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe. This is what it is said that the first person to see was David Livingstone. But we know that there must have been Africans who saw it before David Livingstone. But where I'm coming from is that surely are we taking proper advantage of the water bodies that we have in Kenya in terms of promoting them, in terms of creating awareness, and in terms of making them exciting? Now, those of us who know the Chania Falls in Thika, we hardly speak enough about them. Those of us who know the Nyahururu Falls in Nyahururu, the Thompson Falls in Nyahururu, we hardly talk about them. And so this is a feature water body. Yesterday somebody was asking, are we only talking about the seas? But here now we are talking about rivers, which can also become part of our ecosystem in the blue economy. Next slide, please. One of the things which bothers me a lot is to understand why the Table Mountains of South Africa are so popular. So many people go up there to visit and to see them. There's a cable train which goes up there. And I ask myself, why can't we be able to do the same in Longonot? Are there no investors who can be able to come and develop something which makes it possible for you to use a cable train and go to the top of Mount Longonot, maybe make nice restaurants on top there, and make it part of the tourism package that we have in this country? Next slide, please. This one is Walking with the Wild in Zambia. I'll ask us to go to the next one. I've just spoken about mountains. Again, interestingly, it is easier for people to talk about having climbed Mount Kilimanjaro than Mount Kenya. Now, anybody who has done mountain climbing will tell you it is way more exciting to do it on Mount Kenya. But I think as Kenya, we have not done very well in promoting Mount Kenya as a destination and as a place that we can be able to go and climb the mountain. The other day, the CS of Tourism and the director of KWS did it, but we need to do more. Remember, this is 19,000 feet, this is 17,000 feet. So if we package ourselves properly, there's a lot of opportunities for us also to be able to do on that side of the world. Next. This is the river Zambezi, where there's a lot of water rafting. Again, these are activities which we can be able to bring within the context of our own tourism in Kenya. Now, I come from Western Kenya, where the River Nzoia is, and we only know River Nzoia as a place of floods. Absolutely no economic activity. However, our brothers in Zambia and Zimbabwe have converted the Zambezi ecosystem into a touristic feature, which includes water rafting and things of that nature. This is a picture I took of Zimbabwe. Again, those of us who come from Western Kenya, you will know a place called Kitmikae in the Luo area. You will also know the famous Luanda Magere. Those who come from Vihiga, we have equivalent of hanging stones like these ones in Vihiga. Who talks about them in Kenya? In Zimbabwe, it's a spectacle. They shout about it. It's a touristic attraction. Next slide, please. If you have never done the gorilla safaris in Rwanda and Uganda, you are missing something. Next. Now, as I said earlier, when we talk about tourism in Kenya, we seem to really talk about Mombasa only. But are there parts of Kenya where tourism can thrive, which we have forgotten about? And one of them is the Lambwe Valley. So all these things are not in Mombasa, but we don't talk about them. The central one is Kisumu. The other one is Flamingos in South Nyanza. And this other one is within the Lambwe Valley. So again, there are other areas which can be developed as a tourism areas. So I think the only thing I want to add now is, right now as we speak, Kenya Airways is the only flight which is allowed to come to Mombasa. We don't have what is called the open sky policy. Kenya Airways lands in Lilongwe. Kenya Airways lands in Blantyre in Malawi. Kenya Airways lands in Cape Town. Kenya Airways lands in Johannesburg in South Africa. However, the Turkish Airways has now been stopped from coming directly to Mombasa. It can only go to Nairobi. The Qatar Airways has been stopped from coming to Mombasa. It can only go to Nairobi. The Emirates has been stopped from coming to Mombasa. It can only go to Nairobi. The Kenya government, in its effort to protect the Kenya Airways, is killing Mombasa because there are no direct flights which come to Mombasa. So if there are no flights which come to Mombasa, how will the number of tourists increase from the 1.9 million to a higher number? Nobody knows. The Kenya Airways itself does not have a direct flight from Europe to Mombasa. It does not have a direct flight from Doha or from Dubai to Mombasa. It does not have a direct flight from any South African nation to Mombasa. So I was hoping that the CS will be here while I make this statement. We cannot continue shouting and talking about the blue economy and saying we want to thrive it, but at the same time, we talk about protecting some industry which is not doing their portion properly. The level playing ground must be put in place so that it is possible for other airlines which are willing to compete to be allowed to fly to those destinations. From where I sit, Kisumu has an international airport. If there is an aviation company that wants to fly directly to Kisumu, it should be allowed. Eldoret has got an international airport. If there is any aviation partner who wants to fly directly to Eldoret, they should be allowed. And same to Mombasa. And Kenya Airways must compete. They cannot just sit there, sitting smart, and then they make the rest of us suffer. Finally, I just want to encourage all of us that the future looks great. For the researchers, yesterday I made an allusion about something as simple as crows. Right now, we have 50,000 of them in Mombasa. We seem to have no idea how to eliminate them. Will the researchers help us to tell us how we can be able to handle such things and move them forward? Will the researchers help us in telling us the future of the industry, where we should invest, where we should market, so that we don't do things for ourselves, but we do the things for the industry? With those few remarks, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Wasike. And, I think we have not applauded him well. Maybe we give him one more clap. Thank you. Now, if you have our book of abstracts, you will realize that Mr. Wasike's address has captured two key thematic areas. And he has elaborated so much on trade, transportation, and global connectivity in terms of our transport system, the disconnect that exists between Kenya and the outside world. And he has also elaborated so much on areas that we can improve on under tourism. But he has also highlighted the resilient communities, and that is part of the strong theme on blue economy. harnessing blue economy potential by building safe and resilient communities. And then he talks about the sustainable cities. He talks about a mall that attracts more tourists than our parks and other countries. So if with that, I think the conference as in terms of exploitation and understanding the sub-themes that were presented for discussion for this particular Blue Economy Conference, they have been overwhelmingly, we can say, in details. We have really discussed them and gone even deeper. I'm giving this particular opportunity to plenary and delegates who may have questions or who may have contributions to make based on the presentation that has just happened. Please, we are leaving the floor open. Today we have an open day. Then we have enough time before the closing ceremony, so we can permit and discuss further. Thank you. So, questions, please, inputs, remarks, discussions. Yes. And with that, I'll be requesting Mr. Wasike to come up for the discussion and maybe to answer the questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wasike, for that eye-opening presentation. I'm Jacob from Nyandarua National Polytechnic. It was a very good presentation. My wonder is where will this information end? Which table should this information be placed on? Because it's a wonderful presentation, and all of us are going to do benefit from tourism in this nation. We know that it generates a lot of revenue for this nation, and the earlier we come out with this information to the concerned authorities, the better. So I'm just requesting that we know now, I think Balala is still in charge of tourism in this nation, and I think we need an avenue where such information should reach him. Otherwise, I don't know also who informs him or who helps him, but I think this should not end in this forum. That information should be escalated to those offices. Thank you, sir.
Just in addition to that, again, thank you so much, Mr. Wasike. It's a very enlightening presentation. And I feel very little as a Kenyan now in terms of tourism. Thanks to you, at least now I know where exactly we stand. When we are out there and we are talking about Tembea Kenya, we think people are already here. Kumbe hata wale wa nje hawajafika. So thank you so much for that presentation. I have a question and a comment. My question is, what did Mozambique do in 2017? Because I saw one of the nations that were doing very well in Africa. I think, okay, it's back. And I saw that in between 2017 and 2018, they had an 89% increment in terms of the total tourists heading there. What did they do differently? That may be something we need to benchmark as Kenyans. Then my comment is, and it's not just for you, Mr. Wasike, but for all of us who are here, is how do we convert the development blueprints that we have in Kenya to to become action-oriented. Because when you talked about sports tourism, for instance, I come from a county where sports tourism would thrive, that is Uasin Gishu County. And I do recall that in the first County Integrated Development Plan for Uasin Gishu County, the first term of the county governments, in the blueprint, you will find something about sports tourism, agro-tourism, and what was the other one? Medical tourism. But that is on paper. How do we move from the paper to make it a reality? Because even the neighboring county, Elgeyo Marakwet County, you talked about the cable train, and I recall again that in Elgeyo Marakwet County, in the first CIDP, they had plans to have a cable train connecting Kabarnet town and Iten town. The two towns are both on a hill, and there's a valley. And there's a valley below, and it was a grand idea that still remains on paper. So how do we go forward so that we reach where other nations have reached? I went to Rwanda and went on the gorilla safari. Surprisingly, I did not see any gorillas in the gorilla safari. We went and were told. But you see, we already went there and are recorded as tourists doing the gorilla safari. I think you're right that in Kenya, we need to shout about the small things. The big things actually, not the small things. Because in Rwanda, the gorilla safari is actually small, but they really shout about it. And we have so much in Kenya that we do not shout about. Again, thank you very much. I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation. My name is James Washira from the Wildlife Research and Training Institute. We also happen to just be on our transition from the Kenya Wildlife Service. So having been in KWS for quite a number of years, I know that the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife has been in the forefront of promoting local tourism. I think when you mentioned that the CS and the Director General KWS were climbing Mount Kenya, that is part of what the government has been doing to try and promote the local tourism in the country. I also know that under the ministry, we have quite a number of initiatives, like the Magical Kenya initiative, that seeks to maybe promote the local tourism circuits across the world. So maybe I think the government is trying something, maybe not enough, but at least something is happening in terms of showcasing Kenya as a tourist destination across the world. One of the things that I noted from the statistics, especially focusing on the visitation in the European and American countries, is the high number of visitation. And maybe my question was, might that be linked to the economic status, looking at the GDP, especially in the European countries, that the people there are able to afford maybe a bit of money to travel, a bit of money for tourism. And now coming back to our local situation, where I know in most of the African countries, we can talk about the Nigerian population hitting 200 million, but what is the level of poverty? When we look at those statistics in terms of poverty and the need status, and how many people will be able to afford to go for a visit. So might that be a factor that is constraining the visitation in most of the African countries today? Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Can you hear me? Okay, I'll start with the last comments, and I'm glad you're with me from the same area. Let me start by saying this. What we are seeing in Kenya is that the middle level economy is growing, and more people are now traveling and appreciating their country. A long time ago, from where I come from, when you made money, you went and got married to a second wife. But now, when you make money, you actually travel. I think the SGR has been a game changer. What we are seeing today is that many people are coming to Mombasa, sometimes not to see the hotels, but to enjoy the SGR. We have so many PCA, Women Guild, chamas, and people of that nature, really, who come and they are now starting to appreciate the hotel facilities. So whereas it could be true that we are not as rich as the world elsewhere, but there's a very steady growth of the people who now have got income which can be able to do a tourism activity. And I think the industry is responding well by giving the prices which make it possible for such people to come. And I think the priorities of the people also are changing. So I know Kenyans who have taken a bus and gone to Rwanda by bus. So those dynamics are changing. So it's a question of time, and then we shall be able to see major changes happening. You made some comments about what is being done by the government, and I want to respond with a lot of respect as a Kenyan who is a taxpayer. Number one, we're just about to go and do our elections. My feeling is that the more we give, particularly the governors, we choose people who are technocrats as opposed to politicians, the higher the chances of improvement and growth. Most of our governors seem to think that development is to put solar lighting in towns. So after the first gubernatorial elections that we had, every governor went and put solar lights. Now, infrastructure is important, but is that all? However, when you go and you look at, say, the approach which, say, what Professor Nyong'o has been able to do in Kisumu, and his strategic thinking and where he wants to go, he's saying he wants to move schools from the center of town to take it elsewhere to bring a more viable community. You know, it's that kind of thing that we need to do so that we're choosing people who can be able to lead us in growing the place, people who understand some economics and they understand what stimuli is, and they can be able to do things which will make it possible for the commoner to put a bit more money in the pocket. And I'm not associating with any political orientation here. Thirdly, one of the challenges we have, if you take KTB, for example, number one, it is not properly funded. So I don't think they have enough money to be able to go out and do a proper marketing of Kenya. However, if you take their budget, a significant amount of that money goes to paying salaries as opposed to doing the marketing. So those are the skewed things that we have, which we need to look at and try and change. And this change must come from us also. You know, somebody asked, what are we going to do from here? I think this information, we get it. I think it was my brother Watene who was saying yesterday, we can come and sit in all these conferences and go out, but if we don't pick up something which we now go and do, we are doomed. I mean, yesterday I was speaking to Professor Linus Wekesa, I think, and one of the things I'm going to do personally is to plant a few more trees where I come from. And he gave me quite a few ideas on what trees to plant and where, and the yield and so on and so forth. So let's empower ourselves as the commoners and do something differently. I think the other question which came up was about sports tourism, cultural tourism, and things of that nature. It's very much related to the kind of leadership that we are going to give ourselves, both at the national level and even at the county level. I mean, if you look at our friend from Makueni, for example, how he's been able to help farmers in terms of mango farming and things of that nature. We need more of people of that nature who can be able to engage people and help them to grow what we have at the moment. But for as long as we don't go that direction, we are totally doomed, and we shall have a very big problem. There was a comment about 2017 being a fairly good year and change. What seems to happen, particularly in Kenya, in the tourism industry, is we have waves. At one time we do very well, and then at another time we do very badly. So like right now we have all, fingers crossed that the political temperatures will not become so high to affect our trade. In the past they have. Mombasa has never recovered from the 1997 Likoni clashes. Mombasa has never recovered from the bombing of the Israeli hotel, the Paradise Hotel in Kanamai. When these things happen, we take a very long time to come out of it. Right now, I can tell you, we're already getting a few cancellations from people who are saying we don't want to come in August because of your elections. So this election cycle keeps affecting us. And the day Kenyans will try and ensure that we put politics different from business is the day we shall move forward. I mean, I keep asking people, who is the president of Switzerland? We don't even know. And from what I remember, they even have a rotational arrangement. But we have made politicians so important, they are messing us up, and we follow them as they continue messing us up. We better become educated, we be more empowered, and start doing things in a different way. We should become like the Karen Langata Association, who are able to take the government even to court and say, listen, you don't give us services, we are not going to pay taxes. But if we continue with the attitude we have, we'll have a big problem. Now, my sister, you spoke about sports tourism. A town like Cape Town, apart from all the other factors of tourism which are there, education by itself has become an economy. The number of people who are students in Cape Town who are not South African is absolutely amazing. And with them, what has happened is there are so many hostels which have been built, and so many eateries which have been built. So maybe what we should be asking ourselves here, even as we talk about TVETs, can we make ourselves so relevant in these TVET issues so that other countries can be bringing their children here into our TVET institutions? Now, when they come in, they'll need a place to sleep. They'll need a place to eat. They will need leisure. And this is another way of growing an economy. So the wider we make the scope, the easier for all of us to be able to move on. And somebody asked about the information we are sharing here. Is it reaching the right people? Just that you know, I'm the current National Vice Chairman of the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers. And I've been in this position for the last 10 years. There's nothing I'm saying here which we have never said elsewhere. We keep saying the same thing. We keep crying about the same thing. We have cried about Kenya Airways until our voices are going hoarse. And to be honest with you, and I hope nobody's stepping me, purely for this room, it is like ni kama kupigia mbuzi guitar. Total waste of time. So if we don't change the dispensation of what's happening, we'll have a very big problem. I mean, the other day I was listening to the Minister of the CS of Education, who comes from Yala, telling us that when he goes to Yala, he cannot get a plumber to repair his bathroom manenos when they have a problem. And that is the truth. The truth is there are some portions of industry we have totally forgotten about. I know I'm digressing a little bit, but the emphasis is there are so many little things if we pick them and put them together, they'll become a bigger thing and they can be able to affect us in a better way. I think I have answered all the questions. Do you still want me here or I go down?
Yes, Mr. Wasike, we would wish just stay there. And you're so wide in terms of your analysis. World over, you're able to give us prospects of what happens elsewhere. It's either it's widely read or widely traveled. So if there's any other piece that you'd wish to share with us, the floor is yours.
Maybe, do we have any other question? Yes, Robert here has a question.
Thank you, Bwana Wasike. About tourism in Kenya. You remember in the 90s, just before 2007, we had so many tourists, especially in the coast. And unfortunate happening that happened in 2007 really messed up our tourism sector. And after that, it has never been the same again. There's something that doesn't happen. We do not have the tourists that used to come in large numbers. But if you go to the hotels, I'm talking like a hotel, the 5-star hotels, the 4 stars, you see the pricing is still the same. Yet now, the tourists that you expect, the biggest share is the domestic tourists. So if somebody's coming from Nairobi, what they're doing, they don't want to come to those hotels. They're very expensive. They go to somewhere in Tuapa. They get an apartment, which is they'll pay for the whole family 10,000, 15,000, a day, fully furnished. And they stay there. So these big hotels continue suffering. So there need to be a paradigm change with these big hotels. You'll be very comfortable in a 5-star hotel with around 11,000 per night. And you enjoy everything. Therefore, it is important that also in the hotel sector, you try to change the paradigm. Those very expensive, pricing should be thought about so that you can attract more of the real domestic tourists to come and stay in those hotels. I think so.
Thank you, Mr. Watene. It's really a concern, the pricing.
First and foremost, the hotel is also being challenged by the changes in the world like any other place. A few years ago, nobody knew about Uber. Now Uber has come in a very disruptive way. I mean, you would go into a taxi and the guy, you start negotiating from 2,000 and you pay 500 shillings. Just not making sense. Some young people somewhere went and started just a software. And through the software, they have been able to totally regulate the activities which are happening in the get a very cheap Uber. But apart from getting the Uber, you can put it in such a manner that if you are scared of where you are going, you can actually get your spouse or your family to monitor with you where you are going, so that in case of anything, they can follow up and know where you are. That's an innovation. In exactly the same way.
It was quoted that from Professor Lumumba, one listened, and just before I accosted, this is research. Accosted, this is research. Let us welcome the DG.
Chief guest, Mr. Munene, who is also ably representing the peers, the chairman of the governing board, members of the board of governors, the chief principals, directors present, heads of sections, and all protocols observed. Institutions are this active, although I've been hearing a lot in the news. And you may take certain things for granted, but even the kind of digital screen that I see here, the facilitator is way ahead of finances, and this is your time. As I mentioned in my first day, we, as NACOSTI, we regulate and there's something they define the research system, which is RSTI, the innovation component, which is the touch, the space, by the way, be able to take you back. So I would urge you, especially during these times that have been brought about by COVID, where people are looking for solutions rather than degrees and so forth, then you'll be able to occupy a space which is very unique to this country and probably attract more funding from donors. Just yesterday, I think, I don't know which newspaper, if you read, there was an article on an ear, 3D printing of somebody's ear. I don't know if one of you read it. It is moving very fast. And I'll just say, yes, we have not even started the 4th industrial revolution, by the way. But the world has already entered the 5th industrial revolution as provoked by COVID. They were printing the ear yesterday and somebody's ear has been replaced. Just generating tissues and so forth. It's one area I'm saying we are doing medical sciences. It's one area that could be of great interest because if all of you has a printed ear, we do not know whether whoever printed your ear will be controlling you. You will be speaking and maybe somebody else speaking using your mouth. You'll be breathing. It's a very risky situation, by the way, that the world is entering into. Take it seriously. That one, whenever I go, I try to emphasize that that's where now science, like in Vision 2030, the MTP4, I'm also pleased as Chief Principal that you have been able to send your staff to the trainings that we've had on ST2. Literally have over 400 MBAs who are undertaking that STI mainstreaming based development of women in science. We were just highlighting a lady. Maybe next we should be focusing on the Chief Principal. And occupied the right space for this invitation is the industry. Getting them is not easy. And at the end of the day, the product.
Without much ado, I want to take this opportunity for your speech. Welcome the chief guest. Karibu. Let us applaud.
Good morning, all. My speech by informing you that I've known me. I think all of us from our community here agree he's a very, thank you very much for naming. Now, most people here, of course, will not know my background here, but by Mr. Eric Levy, a fellow engineer, we were at Technical Training Institute then. Pleasure to be here and to serve. So we recognize the members of the Polytechnic. I asked standing to be recognized by Nancy Mali. Yeah. Thank you very much. All the industrial stakeholders, participants, ladies and gentlemen. On research, innovation, and skills, we had very good presentations over the last 2 days. Were quite impressive. The people come and be with us. Kenya Coast is taking its place as a premier TVET institution, and this is the first national conference on research, innovation, and skills exhibition. Is a testament to our vision to be a region, which is something greatly. Participants from many institutions of higher learning, both local to come to the conference who participated in the conference virtually. I urge the paper presenters to take positive comments that were made by the judges as well as fellow participants during these presentations. Finally, I thank the Polytechnic Council and management for providing good leadership that led to the actualization of this conference. I thank the staff who spent a lot of time in preparing for this conference, and I'm sure we all know in our hearts it takes a lot of work and thinking to organize such a conference. I thank you all who participated. Going forward, we hope to have this conference become an annual event in the calendar of the Kenya Coast National Polytechnic Affairs. It is my hope that the participants had a pleasant stay in Mombasa, and as you leave and you travel back home, we wish your journey to wherever you're going to very, very pleasant and safe. Thank you very much. Back to you. Now, it's my pleasure to invite our guests, chief guest, Mr. Ephraim Munene, Deputy Director in the Department of Vocational and Technical Training, part of the government. Karibu Bwana Munene.
We can be seated. Let us all be seated. Thank you. And thank you, my chairman. He's my chairman because I do represent the PSVTT in the Kenya Coast National Polytechnic Council. I was here and I've listened to quite a number of presentations, and now we are coming to the close of this event. And this is our first event, and we are starting what we learned here yesterday. We are starting to lose the shore so that we can discover new oceans. So let us go there. So the Director General, National Commission for Science and Technology, Innovation, Professor Walter Oyawa, Dr. Osawa, representing the Director General, TVETA, Professor James Kanywa, the chairman of the Kenya Coast National Polytechnic Council, council members who are here, the Chief Principal, Madam Anne, industry advisory members present, who've been with us throughout this conference, the CATI chair, I can see you there, the TVET County Director, Peter Mwangi, our trainers who are there, our other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am pleased to officiate on this important conference named Breaking the Barriers, Science, Technology, Innovations, Sustainable Blue Economy. Let me take this early opportunity to thank you all to have set aside time to participate and provide expert insight on various sub-themes during this conference. I am reliably informed and have witnessed that the conference brought together participants from diverse fields that include industry, academia, and government institutions, including the MDAs. I note with satisfaction that the conference discussed diverse sub-themes, including naval engineering, forestry, gender mainstreaming in blue economy, ICT integration in blue economy, science, technology, innovations, among others. Particularly, the Director General, Nakosti, you put it so well that the universities will conduct research, they will do research, but TVET institutions, we have space, we have resources, we have equipment to be able to take the innovation part of it that has a commercial element. Ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, the blue economy domain comprises of varieties of productive sectors that include forest, mining, tourism, fisheries, offshore energy, mariculture, and transport. The government remains committed to formulation of policies and regulations to guide the exploitations of these resources. This, combined with the East Strip project, will help catapult Kenya to a lead position in exploiting the blue economy in the region. The blue economy concept covers the oceans, the seas, lakes, rivers, underground water, the wetlands, and the use of these resources for economical growth, improved livelihood and jobs while preserving the ocean ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, the role of science, technology, and innovations cannot be overemphasized. Innovations have a commercial objective, and TVETA should take advantage of this component. That is TVET institutions, all TVET subsector. The blue economy has the potential to triple our country per capita earnings if it is well harnessed, because we are saying it is abundant in so many things. The space, the resources, some which have not even been exploited at all. The role of TVET should be to develop skills and talent pool for us to achieve this purpose. We need skills, we need competencies in this area so that we can be able to find a path for us to exploit this area. As you are aware, the mangrove forest within the marine ecosystems plays a significant role in the carbon trade. They act as a carbon sink, and we are told if we are not careful, they will also act as a carbon source, which will be dangerous for us. Additionally, the mangrove forests provide energy and prevent coastline sedimentations and food products. Ladies and gentlemen, I note with satisfaction that during the conference, Young African Works in Kenya, TVET, will be requesting grant proposals for establishing 10 applied research and innovation centers at Young African Works in Kenya. The TVET in Kenya, TVET partners in Kenya. This is so because, as you are aware, and that is why we are saying that we have potential, whenever you see a project coming to us, it comes to us because somebody somewhere has done a survey and he has discovered that we have capacity to deliver on that project. And that is why still we are saying TVET institutions, we need to dig in and look at all the energies, all the ideas that we are generating and see how we can now start actualizing that one. Because at the bottom of the pyramid, we are the people who are training middle level manpower that we can go toward that production of product and services. Ladies and gentlemen, these centers will allow for greater experiential learning opportunities for our students in Kenya in TVET institutions to maximize the potential for employment, create jobs, and spur economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I want to say the 3 days conference discussions centered on innovative ways to sustainably exploit the blue economy. The conference report will inform further research and innovations. The government will examine and adopt these conference outcomes to inform development of policies where it is appropriate. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, now that we've been here, we've dialogue, we've listened to each other, we have made very quality discussions. It is time for us to close this conference. It is now my present duty to declare the inaugural Kenya Coast National Polytechnic International Conference on Research, Innovation, and Skill Exhibitions officially closed.
Thank you, our chief guest, for that particular wonderful closing speech. And at this particular juncture, I want to welcome the matron in charge of the cake to commemorate our inaugural International Research Conference this particular day. And maybe just briefly we can have an interlude as they prepare the stage.
Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami ilondoloze 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 zungangishilana ilondoloze 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 zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami
Tanguru mo vitu vyote pia viumbavyo kwa uwezo wako, roho yangu na ikuimbie jinsi wewe ulivyo mkuu, roho yangu na ikuimbie jinsi wewe ulivyo mkuu.
Hello. Good afternoon. KCNP mama iko. KCNP kama iko. Research tunaweza ama tuwezi? Tunaweza Thank you very much. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Almighty God for enabling us to take this milestone. And I want to thank all the guests who are invited. And I want to thank our chief principal for making this possible. You see, for a mother, the firstborn is always the best child, because the first child makes you to know that you are a mother or you are a father. Sindio. So for KCNP, we feel very delighted, we are very happy, we are joyful, because we've gotten our firstborn in the matters of research. And that is why that first is very important for us. And that's why we are really feeling grateful to God for making us take this step. So at this juncture, we want to celebrate the occasion and mark it well. Put in quotes, mark it well, because this is just but the beginning. From the second up to the 1,000, mtatutambua. So I don't want to talk a lot. I think the cake will speak more. So basically, we are just thanking God for enabling us to be able to do the first international conference, and for sure it has been an international one. For those who have been here since day one, I think mmeona wazungu mkachoka, bado hawajaenda, wamepumzika tu kwa White Sands, Serena, and the rest, so they will still be joining us as we move on. So feel like you are at KCNP, join us to celebrate this great occasion, and we are inviting you for the next and the next and the next. And when you invite us, we will also come and witness yours. Thank you very much. So at this juncture, I would like to welcome the Chair of Research, Mr. Michael Njoga, to come and invite the Chief Principal to take over the cake session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, hospitality department. I want to inform you that planning, the meals, the protocol, and all the activities that were running behind the scenes were well coordinated by students of hospitality as well as the trainers in that particular department. And therefore, that alone shows how the state is working already. Is that okay? So with that, the idea to host this particular conference was conceived sometime last year in August or September thereabout. Then later on we formed the first committee to plan this particular child. Because right now it's now delivered. Is that okay? So it's a child. We're starting the baby steps. So it was conceived when I visited the chief principal in our office, and we held talks, and we agreed, and every time we consulted on dates and the procedures and how to go about everything until here we are today. So today we have a baby and we want to share it with the world, and that marks a milestone. And in fact, in our Q4 report, I think it will be remarkable when we send our PC report to the ministry. But the hallmark of all this is how are we going to transform the innovation part of it. So all others will appear in the vote of thanks. With that, I'm inviting the chief principal and her delegation for the cake cutting event. And ensure you have a piece of the ICO rice. ICO rice is our editorial. ICO rice stands for National Conference on Research, Innovation and Skills Exhibition. So just like Professor Kanywa said, it takes so much deep thinking and a lot of effort for us to come up with this. So ICO rice 1 is ready. There will be ICO rice 2 and like that, volume 2, volume 3, volume 4. And ensure that every time we are compiling these volumes, drop an abstract, drop a paper. You never know. Is that okay? You never know who can, because you can always improve on it. Who can take it up, and you never know where the funds may come from. So build your CV based on what you are doing for the society. This one thing that we learned when we were at multidisciplinary conference in Naivasha, that as a researcher, 1, you must be patriotic. 2, you must be passionate about it. If you do it expecting immediate returns, then you are not in the right place. The returns may take forever to come, but when they come in abundance. So as a researcher, you also need that perseverance aspect of it, so that you persevere the hurdles that comes with the research you are doing or the scope of the work you are doing. It may be financial, it may be social, it may also be legislation that stops you from conducting that, but you must persevere all the turmoils. So I think the Chief Principal is now ready. So we are inviting Chief Principal and the delegation to lead us in cutting the cake. Karibu sana, Madam Chief Principal. So you're prepared to have a piece of Aiko rice cake. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now it is time to be able to mark the first step for our firstborn, Icorize. And therefore, at this time, the DJ, you can give us a song. Tam, 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 keki ni tamu, tusherehekee.
Africa! Kata, 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 ikeki, kata, kata, tuioje, kata, kata, kata. Tamu, 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 keki ni tamu, ahe. Tamu, 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 keki ni tamu, ahe. Oh, tamu, 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 keki ni tamu, ahe. Tamu, 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 keki ni tamu, ahe. Sweet, 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 keki ni sweet, ahe. Sweet, 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 keki ni sweet, ahe.
Lasma Kashike.
Keki ni sweet, ahe. Sweet, 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 keki ni sweet, ahe. Tufurahi sote tukiingoja, ahe. Tufurahi sote tukiingoja, ahe. Tufurahi sote tukiingoja, ahe. Yeah. Sote tukiingoja, ahe. Kuna meza mate tunaingoja, ahe. Kuna meza mate tunaingoja, ahe. Kuna meza mate tunaingoja, ahe. Yeah. Kuna meza mate tunaingoja, ahe. Tamu, 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 keki ni tamu, ahe. Tamu, 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 keki ni tamu, ahe. Tamu, 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 keki ni tamu, ahe. Keki ni tamu, ni tamu sana. Keki ni tamu sana. Watu wote wanaingoja, watu wote wanaingoja. Wamama wote wameza mate, wamama wote wameza mate, hata watoto wanaipenda, watoto wote wanaipenda, hata vijana wanaingoja, hata vijana wanaingoja, wazee wote wanasimama, wazee wote watabasamu.
Mchezo wa meno. Hakuna kucheza.
Cheza, cheza,
Bali ni mchezo wa meno.
Wanaingoja keki kweli.
cheza.
Keki ni tamu kweli.
Ruka Kimasai, Ruka Kimasai, Ruka Kimasai, Ruka Kimasai, Ruka Kimasai, Ruka Kimasai. Cheza Kikiriamo, cheza Kikiriamo, cheza Kikiriamo, cheza Kikiriamo.
Wote.
Lasma Kashike.
Ninakupenda. Unanipenda. Ninakupenda. Ningwendete. Niunyendete. Ningwendete.
Les pacificateurs jusqu'au bout, vital kamemi. Miuma no kakati, zoba no kakati. Miuma no kakati, zoba no kakati. OLK, initiative plus. Toza kolia, toza komela, toyena programme. Lilie, 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 lilie te yope bapeza ya. Kilo Burunda, Jean-Paul Bichouka Obani Boulon a 10 Olembino na 12 Talabaninga ba continue Nasima tangwa salaire Yope bafuta La haute gamme Elga Elegance Yope bafuta yo Salomon, Ben Salomon Yuma no kakati Zoba no kakati Yuma no kakati Zoba no kakati Les MVP, Serge Iba.
Okay. Oya, Sukuma, we, Simba Washimoto. Sukuma, we, ambia wale watoto. Asacheza shubaka yoko. Sayoko, yani kama na chamba doko. Woko moko. Wape. Nasema wape. Wape. Sasa wape, come wape, you know ya kwenye cha.
You might think me a speaking tongue, I saw me break it down for you understand this simple time. As you can see, already Debo just stand firm, so guess what? Debo is about to get up and say, ha! 13 demon, then 15 admitted. Ha! No, you beaten me, they may beaten that. I beaten me, they may beaten that. They can't have beaten and say, ha! What I know, what you one man may say no. Proclaim Christ and this devil have been no. Proclaim Christ and this devil have been no. Ha! Me no need a spa. Me and then have to be Satan pa. What him up put together, nobody can put a pa. What him up put together, nobody can put a pa. Shoot Satan, pa. How what we do? Shoot Satan, pa. Cock your gun, shoot Satan. Devil have been there, pa. Shoot Satan, pa. How what we do? Shoot Satan, pa. Cock your gun, shoot Satan, pa.
So nashukuru niko sawa, so mina vimbada na mpasifa kama kawa, so mina vimbada.
Alipokwisha kunena, alimwambia Simoni, tweka mpaka kilindini, kashushe nyavu zenu. Yesu alipokwisha kunena, alimwambia Simoni, tweka mpaka kilindini, kashushe nyavu zenu. Bwana mkubwa, tumefanya kazi ya kutosha usiku kucha. Bwana mkubwa, tumefanya kazi hata tusipate kitu. Bwana mkubwa, tumefanya kazi ya kutosha usiku kucha. Bwana mkubwa, tumefanya kazi hata tusipate kitu. Lakini kwa neno lako nashusha nyavu, nashusha nyavu, nashusha nyavu, nashusha nyavu. Bwana kwa neno lako nashusha nyavu, neno lako nashusha nyavu. Yesu kwa neno lako nashusha nyavu, nashusha nyavu, nashusha nyavu. Bwana kwa neno lako wananipigania, watesi wajipange, Bwana utapigana nao. Nimetoa mwenzenu, nimetoa na mafuta nikapewa, nikapanda na mbegu nikapanda ila mvua ikunyesha. Bwana mkubwa, tumefanya kazi ya kuchosha usiku kucha. Bwana mkubwa, tumefanya kazi hata tusipate kitu. Bwana mkubwa, tumefanya kazi ya kuchosha usiku kucha. Bwana mkubwa, atanibariki kwa kadri ya utajiri wake, kwa kipimo cha kujaa, kusukwa hata kumwagika. Atanipa mahitaji yangu kwa kadri ya utajiri wake, kwa kipimo cha kujaa, kusukwa hata kumwagika. Bwana atanibariki kwa kadri ya utajiri wake, kwa kipimo cha kujaa, kusukwa hata kumwagika. Atanipa mahitaji yangu kwa kadri ya utajiri wake, kwa kipimo cha kujaa, kusukwa hata kumwagika. Nani apinge alichosema Mungu? Nani alaani alichobariki Mungu? Hakuna awezaye kuzuia alichotenda Mungu. Na kama kuna pando lopandwa na mwovu, nang'oa pando la mwovu bila nang'oa andiko kwa hila, nafuta andiko la hila. Na kama kuna pando lopandwa na mwovu, nang'oa pando la mwovu bila nang'oa andiko kwa hila, nafuta andiko la hila. Mimi andikwa nitakuwa kichwa si mkia, wa kwanza si wa mwisho. Bwana atanibariki kwa kadri ya utajiri wake, kwa kipimo cha kujaa, kusukwa hata kumwagika. Atanipa mahitaji yangu kwa kadri ya utajiri wake, kwa kipimo cha kujaa, kusukwa hata kumwagika. Bwana atanibariki kwa kadri ya utajiri wake, kwa kipimo cha kujaa, kusukwa hata kumwagika. Atanipa mahitaji yangu kwa kadri ya utajiri wake, kwa kipimo cha kujaa, kusukwa hata kumwagika.
DJ Jontes.
Nataka kusoma kwa shule yako, nichukue nifunze. Nataka kusoma kwa shule yako, nikiwa nawe kama mwalimu, ninajua nitahitimu, nitashinda adui akileta majaribu. Unitayarishe, unibadilishe, mtihani nipite, mwito nitimize. Nijue kuandika, niandike maono yangu. Nijue kuhesabu, nihesabu baraka zako. Nijue kuongea, nihubiri neno lako kwa watu wako.
Let it go. Alemba. Sound master. Clap, clap, clap. Clap to the hand, to the hand. Clap to the hand, clap to the hand. Everybody, let's go. Everybody go down. Go, go, go down. What? Dance move and take over the street. Everybody a move to the beat. And the dancer bring you the street. In a canyon we're so sweet. Let's get down to business in a Jesus way right now. Everybody out. Everybody out. Move to the gut, move to the beat. Everybody out. Basso, kizo, basso. Basso, kizo, everybody basso. Basso, kizo, basso. Everybody move to the beat. Dance move and take over the street. Everybody move to the beat.